Ms Vučković and Ms Godskesen. Welcome to our Parliamentary Assembly Mediabox platform. Your report, you are both reporter on the report on the functioning of democratic institutions in Turkey and the member of the monitoring committee in the Parliamentary Assembly. And your report is just adopted in the Parliamentary Assembly plenary session. So I would like to start with Ms Vučković, and could you please explain the main concerns that you mentioned in the report? But maybe it's better to start also to mention the role of the monitoring committee and the situation of Turkey in this committee.
Well, the monitoring committee is one of the very, very important committees in the Council of Europe Parliamentary Assembly, because it actually follows how the member states of the Council of Europe, those that are new democracies or not so well-rooted democracies, fulfill the requirements of the membership of the Council of Europe. So Turkey is currently a very important member of the Council of Europe, but it is in the process of the post-monitoring dialogue, as we call it. And within that framework, Ms Godskesen and myself, we have been elected co-rapporteurs for Turkey for the next period, so as to follow the requirements that Turkey has to fulfill in the area of democracy, rule of law and human rights. And that was our task to do. That is what we had to assess, the status, the situation in Turkey in regard to those three issues or areas.
And in these three areas, especially in these three, let's say, the main topics, under these topics, you mentioned some concerns on this country, Turkey. So could you please give some examples or underline which kind of concerns that you have, also that you mentioned in the report?
For the first, we have concerns about the curfew in the southeast. The people there suffer and they are afraid. And therefore, this was a very big task for us. Another thing is the journalists, the freedom of speech and the freedom of telling what they can see everywhere. So these two tasks was one of the two I will see was very important.
And also, the monitoring committee is doing fact-finding visits to Turkey.
Yes.
That you also mentioned in the debate that you had one of this visit before
Yes.
before finalizing the report. So, what are your outcomes on that visit, and also the south part as well? So, what would you like to know the situation in Turkey in the light of the report?
We were in Turkey at the beginning of May, and we have seen a lot of people from the government and from civil society, from university, from academia, from media. We met with journalists that were sentenced to prison because of some investigative journalism that I have been doing. We have seen a lot of human rights activists dealing in the areas of the southeast of Turkey, which are actually which is actually the districts that are under curfews, very many, because of some terrorist activities over there. So what we actually wanted to do is to assess and to hear different sides for all those the problems that we have identified. So we met with journalists, but we also met with the representatives of the government, and then we compare, of course, the reports that we receive from those two parts, and then we make a report. What was very, very important also to stress is that we have found that there are very degrading tendencies regarding the rule of law and the independence of judiciary. And that is something that is crucial for the Council of Europe and for the Parliamentary Assembly, apart from human rights that Ingebjørg mentioned, or the situation in media, because there are a lot of, a big number of judges and prosecutors are relocated to other courts or prosecutors' offices without their will. So it is something that we see as an undue interference of the executive, of the government, onto the judiciary and judges. And that is something that is not in line with democratic governance.
Yes.
And I will fill out with one point that we are very happy about the way the authorities in Turkey and the Turkish delegation here prepared the fact-finding mission for us. We are very grateful to them.
And before finishing, I would like you to express some points on the conclusion of the report and what's going to be the next step, let's say, because as you mentioned in the report, you will have a visit at the end of this year and also in 2017. And the question is is Turkey going to be in the post-monitoring system or return to monitoring system? So it was also discussed in the debate. So I would like to have the answer from the both rapporteurs.
Well, the resolution has actually imposed now to the Turkish authorities some very concrete requirements and tasks that they have to address in a very serious manner. And we're going to follow the situation in all those three fields. For example, it has been stated out that there is no legal ground for the curfews in southeast Turkey. So they will have to address that thing. We have also demanded that they repeal, that they annul some provisions in their criminal penal law, like, for example, for insulting the president of Turkey and so on, because there are so many cases that obviously are a proof that by using these criminal offenses, actually journalists and intellectual and civil rights activists are not allowed to work freely. So we are going to follow the situation in the months to come, and then we're going to produce, which is already planned for 2017, a monitoring report which will address all those issues that are subjects of the post-monitoring dialogue with Turkey, according to previous resolutions, and we will assess the situation. And then we will propose to the Assembly either to continue the post-monitoring dialogue, to restart the monitoring procedure, or to finish with the post-monitoring dialogue, which at this point is very, it's not very, how to say, we don't expect that this is going to be the case, but nevertheless we will see how our next report will assess the situation in Turkey.
Would you like to also add something on your expectations maybe for next?
My expectation is that I follow up the report we now have made. And I think it's a good report. It's not soft. It's just in the middle, in my opinion. So I think I will follow them very carefully because I think it's important for them to fulfill it. If not, it will be very difficult for us to make a report. But we will do it, and we will look to the country, to Turkey, from each side of the world, almost, because me from Norway and my friend here from Serbia, so it will be a very important and difficult work.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.